Get ready!
Kingdom Hearts 1 was a big success both critically and commercially, so of course Nomura got to work on a sequel, which wasn't actually Kingdom Hearts 2. See, just because Kingdom Hearts 2 is a sequel to Kingdom Hearts 1, it doesn't make it the sequel to Kingdom Hearts 1. 2 years after the first game, a direct sequel on the Game Boy Advance of all things, titled Chain of Memories, was released. One thing you need to know about this series is that there are a lot of really important games on handheld systems. I think there are only like 3 games that were made from the ground up to work on consoles. It's weird. Just like 358 Over 2 Days, another sequel to Kingdom Hearts 1 that takes place at the same time as Chain of Memories. With that in mind, I'll try to sum up the general points established in these games that lead up to Kingdom Hearts 2. Remember how Sora became a Heartless at the end of the first game? Well, when he did that, he created a Nobody, which is basically an opposite Heartless. When a particularly strong person loses their heart, the empty, emotionless body is left behind to function on pure instinct. Some are so powerful that they appear almost human, like Roxas. Sora's Nobody, who appears in Twilight Town at the end of the first game. He is quickly recruited by the debatably evil Organization 13, a group of 12 other powerful nobodies that I'll get more into later. The game 358 Over 2 Days, which I know is supposedly pronounced 358 Days Over 2, but I just pronounced it 358 Over 2, so just go with it. Depicts the experience being the organization for, well, 358 days. I won't get into everything that happens, but all you need to know is that it's all very sad, and Axel didn't deserve what happened to him. I'm sorry, Axel! Meanwhile, Sora and his friends enter Castle Oblivion in Chain of Memories, which is some kind of big amnesia machine where they revisit worlds based on Sora's memories. As the adventure continues, they lose more and more of their memories for something to do with the organization, but Sora gradually remembers a girl named Naminé, who one of the organization members tells him is trapped high inside the castle. This all happening while Roxas is carrying missions for the organization in his own story, while gradually becoming friends with a young girl named Xion, which is just a whole nother thing going on, and eating a ton of ice cream. In fact, most of the stuff that happens, there's ice cream involved. It's weird. Sora makes his way through the castle while killing. Is it technically killing if they technically aren't human? I don't know. The members of the organization who are using Naminé to manipulate his memories in a plan to overthrow their leader. Somehow, don't ask me how that was supposed to work. Due to how Roxas, Xion, and Sora are connected in different ways that I'm not getting into because that's just... Events occur that strain Roxas' friendships and eventually lead to him defecting. Sora reunites with Naminé, who I think is supposed to be Kairi's Nobody, which doesn't make sense because she was never a Heartless, but whatever, after defeating Marluxia and is placed in some kind of magic cryo-sleeve so she can place his memories back in order. Meanwhile, Roxas defeats Xion for reasons, and after some things happen, he's placed inside a virtual recreation of Twilight Town and wipes his memories of the organization so he can one day merge with Sora, which brings us to Roxas waking up to meet his friends for a school project. Also, he's voiced by Jesse McCartney. I don't know why I think that's weird, I just wanted to mention it. The beginning is kind of similar to the first game, only a lot more boring. The first 2 or 3 hours of this game, not kidding, are all about Roxas and his friends Hayner, Pence, and Olette doing the usual summer vacation things I assume people who have friends do. They sit around eating ice cream, fight against bullies, take part in some weird thing called struggle. What did they do to you, Setzer? And sit around to talk some more. Their photos are stolen, including the word somehow, but that's never brought up again, so I don't know why they even did that. You do a bunch of part-time jobs for money to go to the beach, but some guy in an organization cloak steals it. He gets flashbacks of Sora since Naminé's almost done fixing his memories, but I'm too distracted by the fact that Hayner's shirt is a reference to the bouncer of all things. Like, why the bouncer? No one liked the bouncer. Why is that even here? It's just not very interesting overall. One thing I do like is how you can choose your progression preference by picking a bat when fighting Safer, or at least someone named Safer that is clearly not Safer from Final Fantasy VIII. It's just weird. After a while, Roxas fights some nobodies and eventually a big nobody, but never mentions it to anyone and just goes to the struggle tournament like nothing ever happened, where he fights Vivi from Final Fantasy IX and is interrupted by Axel for reasons we aren't really clear about because 358 Days didn't come out until 2009.
What's going on?
I just told you, Roxas. After he wins, he falls off the clock tower, and now we know Kairi goes to school, apparently, which means Sora's going to have a lot of cramming to do when he gets back. The day after Roxas falls off the clock tower, it turns out he didn't, and the four of them investigate some town rumors for a school project. The events they investigate are actually a lot more bizarre than they heard, but Roxas never tells them anything. The last thing Roxas investigates is the old mansion where he meets Naminé and finally reunites with Sora, which means the story can really get going now. Did you catch all that? Did you catch that? Did you hear all that? Did you understand what I just said? That took like 3 hours. In game. For how long that is, not much actually happens, so yeah, it's just kind of boring. The first game did something similar, and I do admit the information within this opening makes things more mysterious, but it's also way longer than it needs to be and has a lot more scenes where just nothing happens. There's so much dead air and awkward pauses, like more so than usual in Kingdom Hearts. But now that Roxas is out of the Matrix, we can really get to the meat of this game's story. And there's a lot to talk about. While the first game had a relatively straightforward story of good versus evil with a heavy dose of the power of friendship, Kingdom Hearts 2 goes a lot more in depth with narrative, lore, and character development. The main trio meets Yen Sid, who instructs them to travel to different worlds and uncover the plot of Organization 13 after getting some sick new threads from the fairies from Sleeping Beauty. Okay. Also, Maleficent's back. Just because. Turns out you didn't seal the worlds well enough in the first game, so now you have to go and travel around, do it again while locating Riku and King Mickey. From there, Sora and friends travel to a bunch of different Disney worlds, some new, some old, to locate small items of great importance to the characters that contain the keyholes and seal all the worlds away for good. Meanwhile, Maleficent is back and teams up with Pete to regain her army and try to obtain the power of Kingdom Hearts again, because it worked so well for Ansem. At first, it seems pretty similar to the first game, and it does follow the same kind of structure, but there's just a lot more going on. Most of the worlds hold very little information for Sora's adventure, instead just focusing on the events of the films they're based on. This time, the worlds you visit are Hollow Bastion, Halloween Town, the Colosseum, Agrabah, 100 Acre Woods, and the new areas of the Land of the Dragons, based on Mulan, Beast Castle from Beauty and the Beast, the Pride Lands from The Lion King, Tron from... Tron, I don't know why that's here. That's a weird choice. Disney Castle, which is just here, Uncanny Valley, and the Timeless River. The Timeless River is one of my favorites because it's just an homage to the classic cartoons Disney made in the— Hey! You're still forgetting one! Fine. There's also Atlantica, based on The Little Mermaid. It's completely irrelevant and utterly horrible. It was also in the first game and was easily the worst part of my time playing that one. It's just as bad now, but I'll get to that later. I don't want to face that right now. For now, let's get back to another thing this game does really well: characterization. Not that the first game lacked character, but everyone felt kind of, well, basic and straightforward. Sora was your usual power of friendship goody two-shoes, but now he's more of a naive dork. He's still a frequent user of the word friend and heart and darkness and all that, but now he's a bit sassier and feels more human, as strange as that might sound. I like it. I honestly think his characterization is pretty perfect. Riku, meanwhile, seems a bit more introspective and level-headed, along with being emo, likely due to his time spent in the realm of darkness. Even all the members of Organization 13 have personality, which doesn't make any sense because they're nobodies and nobodies aren't supposed to have feelings, but I mean, it's still welcomed. Kairi's also here, and that's about all the characters she has. One standout character for me is definitely Axel, who might seem annoying to some, but his personal story is actually pretty tragic, especially if you play 358 Days. His goal in kidnapping Kairi and constantly messing with Sora is—
Axel, what were you trying to do?
I wanted to see Roxas. He was the only one I liked. He made me feel like I had a heart.
Sorry, Axel. He's not the only one wanting to manipulate Sora, though. Eventually, we learn that the organization is meddling with the characters and worlds to create more and more powerful Heartless for Sora to defeat. See, when our spiky-haired hero defeats a Heartless with the Keyblade, the heart they're made of is released and contributes to the growth of Kingdom Hearts. Once he releases enough, they'll be able to open the door to the titular construct. Which just makes me question why Maleficent and Ansem had to gather the 7 Princesses of Heart in the first game to access Kingdom Hearts, because in this one, it's literally just let Sora beat all the Heartless, and then the door will open somehow, so I have no idea why they needed. I don't get it. However, what they want with Kingdom Hearts isn't really what you'd expect. Unlike Maleficent or Ansem, who just wanted it for the power it contains, the organization members want it so they can gain hearts of their own and be whole again. This is what I mean when I say they are debatably evil. The thing they want isn't really all that villainous, or even really all that bad if you think about it. They are a group of nobodies with no emotions. They want to become human again, and that's pretty much it. They aren't really wanting to take over the different worlds. Personally, I really like this as a motivation. It's a lot more unique and complicated than just, we want to take over the world, lol. The concept of having villains whose personal goals aren't openly malicious is pretty interesting, not to mention something I can't imagine working like this in a series other than Kingdom Hearts. Oh, also, it turns out that Ansem from the first game wasn't actually Ansem, he was just the Heartless of someone claiming to be Ansem. The leader of Organization 13 is named Xemnas, and he's the nobody of the guy who claimed to be Ansem. Yeah. All in all, Kingdom Hearts 2 adds way more story and characterization to what the first game offered. Now when it comes to gameplay... oh, wow. The basic formula is still the same, but dude, it's so much faster and so much more sparkly and... So, yeah, the game is still a hack-and-slash RPG with platforming elements, but it's been improved even more than the story. In my previous video, I said the combat was a bit slow and awkward, even though it's still fun in its own way. For this game, they fixed basically every small issue I had with the first game. No joke, I actually can't find much issue with the combat system for Kingdom Hearts 2. The pace of battle is much faster, with Sora's animations being a lot more fluid and dynamic. You can swing faster, cast more effective magic, and even rely on your slightly improved allies to pull their weight. It's nuts! The camera's even been zoomed out so you have a better view of your surroundings, making it much easier to comprehend what's going on in the heat of battle. There are more abilities to unlock, with a lot of them being new from the previous game, and let you extend combos or deal extra damage with certain attacks. The magic has also been altered, with most of the spells actually having different effects than the first game. Blizzard is now like the first game's fire, fire is a close-range circle of pain, and thunder is more targeted. Cure is still mandatory though, that hasn't changed. So they fixed up and improved what was established in the first game, but that wasn't enough. They knew they had to add something more to really put the combat over the top, so they threw in the drive system, which is awesome. At several points in the game, Sora will gain access to different drive forms that give him more power and have their own distinct abilities. Most of them even allow you to dual-wield Keyblades, which is the best thing ever! Along with your HP and MP in the corner, you also have a drive gauge, which allows you to fuse with an ally to transform so long as you have enough bars built up from smacking enemies around. First is Valor Form, which lets you combine with Goofy to dish out tons of physical damage. Wisdom Form has you fuse with Donald and lets you float around the arena, shooting magic lasers. It also lets you use more powerful forms of spells. Next is Master Form, requiring both allies and 4 bars, but giving a big boost for both attack and magic. Plus, it lets you do some absolutely crazy looking combos. Oh, and since I'm playing the final mix version of the game, there's also the Limit Form, which isn't in the original game. It also costs 4 bars, but you can use it without any allies. It puts Sora back in his outfit from the first game and gives you the most powerful attacks from Kingdom Hearts 1. And yeah, it's pretty satisfying. Just make sure not to rely on them all the time because you'll get the anti-form, which isn't actually as bad as I remember. See, when you unlock Valor form, the game keeps count of how many times you transform. The more you use drive, the higher the number goes, and the more likely you'll turn into this weird, spindly thing instead of the form you want. The anti-form is meant to be a punishment for overusing the mechanic, possessing decent attack power and a unique moveset, but severely lacking defense and the ability to use magic. It also can't use items or heal, so it's basically a glass cannon. Oh, and it takes your entire drive gauge, and you can't revert while in battle, so you better hope you don't get it while in a boss fight. Then again, it's still pretty effective for hitting things, so it could help. But that's not even Sora's final form. That honor goes to his final form. Yeah, that's just what they call it. This thing is amazing, even if unlocking it can be kind of annoying. It takes 5 bars and both allies, but it is so worth it. You get to fly all over the place with dual floating keyblades, and just look at this. This is ridiculous. This is easily my favorite aspect of the gameplay, and it's great for changing up the combat when you're tired of the normal style, or when you just want everything to die. Another feature they added is reaction commands, which is basically just hit the triangle button now. Most enemies and all boss fights have unique circumstances that will cause this little green thing to appear above your command menu. So smack that button and you'll do something useful. That's pretty much it. Even with all the new stuff, the formula is still the same. Yet they somehow managed to improve basically everything while also streamlining the experience. There's more here and it feels shorter, but in a good way. They even made the gummy ship fun. Now it's a lot more frantic, the camera angles change frequently, the enemies are actually a threat, and it's way more entertaining than the slog of the first game. Of course, even the boss battles are better, bigger, stronger enemies with more interesting attack patterns than almost any boss from the first game. Some are definitely better than others, but I can't remember any that were outright bad. The only part that is bad is Atlantica. So the first game's version was like a normal world with terrible swimming controls and even jankier combat. In this one, it's the worst rhythm, with massive freaking air quotes there, section I have ever seen. I am not kidding. The reason for the air quotes is because there's no rhythm. I put this whole world on mute and pushed maybe 20 buttons max during any song because I really don't like The Little Mermaid. I'm not sorry, I just don't like it, and I don't like the music, I don't like the characters, I don't like any of it, so I put it on mute. And I question why they make it like this in the first place. I mean, the first game was terrible. It had no actual weight to it. It was just swimming around. It was really hard to fight. It made no sense. And this one is shorter because the songs are like 4 to 5 minutes long and the whole thing takes maybe a little less than an hour, but I'm a little conflicted about this because both of them are terrible, but one is terrible in a different way because there's just nothing that relates to the main gameplay, and the other one was just the main gameplay but made worse considering the environment and the restrictions it placed you under. They're just both bad. They're just both horrible, and I honestly don't know why they did this. Whatever. Like I said, it's short and takes less than an hour, so at least it doesn't take too long to get back to the actual game, which is still all about wandering around until you find the next place that pushes the story forward. On the bright side, they actually tell you where to go and what to do in this game. Hallelujah! All of this put together just makes this game so much fun to play, and it only gets better as you unlock more abilities to fight more challenging enemies. And just like the first game, once you've solved the problems in all the Disney worlds, you unlock the final area, the world that never was. I should mention you have to revisit most of the worlds to get rid of the organization members, which offers some of the best boss fights in the whole game. But then, we hit the world that never was, and dude, it's so awesome. You reunite with Riku, who's managed to take control of the darkness, or something like that. Kairi's here, so are Mickey and the real Ansem to finally put a stop to the organization. Turns out you can beat the big bad while also destroying all the Heartless like they wanted, so yeah, you're just beating up everyone. This world is basically a big string of boss fights, starting with an internal battle against Roxas. It's pretty great, if really difficult. Zegbar is a pretty neat little encounter. Next is Luxord, who is also great. Then Syx, which is a bit better than Luxord in my opinion. And finally, Xemnas. Oh my glob. This fight is amazing. 4 phases, teaming up with Riku, a giant dragon, slicing entire buildings, the music, lasers everywhere. This is easily one of my absolute favorite boss fights I've ever played, and it tops all the other fights in the series up to this point in sheer flashiness and excitement. Just freaking look at this. This is awesome. This one part at the end where Sora and Riku are deflecting infinite lightsabers while you mash the X and triangle buttons is honestly just one of the most satisfying things I've ever seen in the game. It looks awesome. And it's all topped off with our 2 Keyblade wielders shooting a magic beam of pure friendship through Xemnas, and it's so good. After all that, the 2 end up on a beach and have a heart-to-heart before walking through the light and finally returning home, ending the events of Kingdom Hearts 2. In case it wasn't clear by this point, I love Kingdom Hearts 2. I think it's a great sequel that does everything to refine what the first game established and just run wild. The story is more intricate, the characters are more realized, and the combat is exactly what I imagine when I think of playing Kingdom Hearts. It's still my favorite game in the series, even after all these years, and I can easily talk about it more and more than I already have in this video. But, as we all know, we still have one more game to cover. See you then.